Hey guys, and welcome to FanCast. We're very grateful to be recording from the historic St Kilda Sports Club, the oldest locker room in the Southern Hemisphere. Join us on the bench, where we talk all things footy. We're fans, and this is FanCast.
G'day Fancasters, and welcome to another episode here on the pod where we have a proper footy chat, and this time we are doing it slightly differently. We are doing it in live format, ladies and gentlemen, live format. The club is not available for us today, so I thought, you know what, rather than simply having a week off, let's do it like this. Let's do it like this, and we'll give it a go. First time doing a live here on the TikTok, and we'll see how it plays out. So feel free, of course, to comment down below and get involved in the discussion, because trying to have a proper footy chat, and I'm going to review each of the rounds, each of the games of this round, and more than happy to see what you guys have to say about that. And we will start, of course, with none other than this great game, not a great game whatsoever, between, of course, the Dockers and the Bombers. Really, what did we learn from this game? Hard to say that we learnt too much about either of these two teams, other than Freo are indeed a lot better than the Bombers are. Fair to say that the Bombers are a little bit of deja vu. New week, same old problems. Injuries out the wazoo, and a terrible system, struggling to get the ball moving forward. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Dockers are playing inspired football, and gee, they look so much better when they've got their main man, Luke Jackson, in the ruck. Yes, he took on, of course, a debutant in the ruck, Vigo Vicentini, best name in football if you don't mind. But well done to Luke Jackson. He did what he had to do, and he saw it through, and he kicked 3 goals, if you don't mind. 3 goals for Luke Jackson in a best on ground performance. Is it a surprise? No, certainly not. But he had to do it, and he did. And he completely dominated in the midfield. The Bombers were left scrambling. The clearances were one-way traffic, and it was all thanks to this guy having all of the play, tapping it straight down to his mids. And we saw that they were some wonderful connection there between him and Sarong in particular. Him and Sarong did so well, and I'm not surprised in the slightest about that. So well done to Luke Jackson on what was a sensational game for him, and a sensational game for the Fremantle Dockers in general. Did they beat anyone of note? No, they did not. But they won in a convincing fashion. 41 points is really important for a team to really build on that great confidence, on the great system, and really put yourself in the right track. So well done to Fremantle. The Bombers, their kids continue to do quite well. The kids are doing all right. The kids seem to be promising. Caddy, Kako, Roberts, Vigo looked good, sort of mentioned him. Archer May looked quite good in the forward line. Lual, I don't think many Essendon supporters were really keen to see how Lual would go, but he definitely has shown some wear, and he's got some pretty good forward pressure. The kids are all right. Angus Clark, for example, he looks really good. There's a few players from Essendon that seem to have a future. But it's the senior players that once again let the team down, and a little bit has to also be from the coaching department as well. Hard to win a game of football. Very hard to win a game of football if you're the Essendon Football Club when you only have 34 inside 50s for a game. 34 inside 50s for a match is abysmally low. How are you going to kick a winning score? Too many backwards kicks, too many slow plays, not attacking the game and trying to get it forward. Because when they did go, they looked all right. But the problem is they played too gun shy and they didn't go hard at it. And when you don't do that, it's going to be really hard to win, especially away from home. So a lot of learnings to come out of this for the Bombers. Did anyone expect anything greater? No, not really. It was all about the Dockers. Shout out to them. Congratulations on a very, very good performance. GG, good to see you, mate. How are you? Have a good one. Spreading the love, the jumper Essendon on my team. Yeah, look, the Bombers, they can be good. They can be good, right? At their best, they're all right. But the problem is, very rare to see their best and very hard to get some consistency. Obviously, there's a lot of injuries that should be rectified after the bye. I'm pretty sure a lot of these players will be available after the bye, especially in the back line, which could hopefully mean that you're not seeing Nick Martin playing back there. You're not seeing Zach Merritt play back there. Hopefully, what you end up seeing is a bit more consistency and stability behind the ball, which therefore means some ability to move the ball quickly and repel some attacks. But this is, of course, a rebuilding year for the Bombers. No one has any expectations on them as ever, really. It's a sad tale for Essendon. Another irrelevant season. We then get to the next game, the Cats and the Lions. Jeez, did anyone predict? Did anybody predict the Lions coming in and absolutely destroying the Cats that way? I certainly did not. That was remarkable. And it seemed almost comical to me that with the Cats fans in their white shirts, waving it around, I think the players got confused and thought they were white flags. And they threw in the surrender really easy, really quickly. The Lions were unbelievable. 14-8 compared to 6-15. The efficiency was all on the Lions side. The clinical efficiency that we see from the Cats deserted them in a big way. It was all the Lions, great pressure, great transition. And I loved the use of Zach Bailey up the ground. Him being involved in those passages, receiving balls out of the back line and then running, it's something that very few teams have done to challenge the Cats in this way. Rather than trying to pass the ball and pinpoint their way through, the Lions were happy to run and gun. Tuck the ball under the arm, take on your direct opponent, and find an overlap. And time again, it was that fast ball movement through the middle of the ground that allowed the Lions to open up the Cats. On the flip side, the Lions were sweating and waiting for Geelong to go for those corridor kicks. They were letting them off, baiting them into making that pass, and then they would pounce. It was a masterclass in how to play the Cattery, which is remarkable because the Lions have not won there in a very, very long time. So well done to the Lions on what was a ripper performance, especially considering that Lachie Neale was not at his best. Lachie Neale was nowhere near firing, but it was the other guys around him, a genuine compliment of team effort that got the Lions over the line against the Cats. And I can see here, Dabby, as a Cats fan, I expected the Lions to not want to lose another game. Well, they definitely don't. And that was part of the reason why it was really interesting in relation to the Lions. And that's why they're such an enigma for a lot of people in this season, because you know what they're capable of. You know what they can do, but they did not do it. And there's been quite a few weeks where they look very lackluster. They definitely were not lackluster on the weekend. They absolutely torched the Cats, which is very rare to see. And to be honest, I'm sorry. I know you're a Cats fan, but it was refreshing. It was refreshing to see the Cats humbled a little bit. We then get to the next game, which was definitely another really exciting one. And I can see you, LJ, talking about North. You want me to talk about North? Well, we're going in order. And here we are. North Melbourne against Carlton. The Blues did indeed lose. If you guys follow the channel, you would know that in the tipping, we tipped North Melbourne to get the dub over the Blues in this week. And it happened in sensational fashion. Could not believe the way that North Melbourne genuinely bullied the Blues. They bullied them. It was genuinely something really impressive to see in a battle in the ruck that you didn't really anticipate that you would see a few weeks ago, considering that Tristan Sherry in ripping hot form, obviously Tom De Koning also in ripping hot form, but Carlton brought in Mark Pittenay. And this is a very divisive opinion, I think, in relation to Carlton. Should not be playing. Quite simply. I understand that you're trying to manage your boy, Tom De Koning, because he's up against the big guy, but against Tristan Sherry, you really need to be challenging him around the ground, and Tom De Koning is not one that is posing any challenge playing full forward. Tom De Koning is not a forward. Tom De Koning is one of the premier rucks in the competition, and he should be using his athleticism, using his running ability and his marking ability to impact stoppages, to impact play and be involved in the play. He's not supposed to be languishing in the forward line. And so that was a call that Vossi did. And I don't think I agree with that personally. And I don't think many Carlton supporters would agree with that as well. So Carlton got some things wrong. Carlton definitely got some things wrong. And North got so much of it right. North Melbourne were brutal at the contest. Their follow-up play, their effort to cause turnovers, they never gave up. And this really was a shinbone of spirit. And I think the moment that really struck with me when I'm thinking about this game, the moment that really resonated with me was seeing Jack Darling run down Adam Chera. That ball was clear as day going inside 50, and he had time and he had space and he could have hit anybody and it would have certainly led to a score. But Darling did not give up on the play whatsoever. He continued to run. He continued to lead from the front. And that's exactly what he was recruited to do. North Melbourne, they got Darling, they got Parker, and they got Daniel. They got three really important players there. Might not be in the prime of their careers, but they've all come from systems that have won premierships. They've all come from systems where they are very competitive. And they've all come from systems that genuinely have good cultures. And I think that what they were trying to do is by recruiting these senior players across the line. So Darling as a forward, Daniel in the back line, and Parker in the midfield. You've now got all areas of the ground being represented with senior leadership that has come across from winning teams. Well done to North Melbourne. Very well done. Each of those pickups are proving to be very successful, and all of them are proving to be very beneficial for leading the youngsters, leading the group to get across. And you can see, clear as day, we spoke about it on the pod. There's now a growing sample size where North's competitiveness is there. And North are no longer the easy beats that they once were. And we've always said it's not necessarily about how you start. Yes, you can start poorly in the season, but it's about how you end. And North Melbourne, as the season is going on, are becoming more and more competitive. So you can sink the boots into Carlton if you want. I know lots of people are very happy, and I'm an Essendon man. I'm very happy to sink the boots into Carlton. But really, more than anything, it should be about giving North Melbourne their due. I know in the last quarter, they definitely were very tentative. They were trying to kill the game and not attack it, which then led to Carlton sort of kicking a bunch of goals at the end to really make it sort of respectable in the end, 11 points. But don't you worry about that. This was not a close game. This was not an 11-point win in any way, shape, or form. This was a brutal victory by North Melbourne, and they entirely put the cue in the rack in that last quarter. So shout out to North. Well done on a very, very... Am I going to say that this is an era-defining win? Potentially. This could be the win that they will look back on for a long period of time and maybe say this is where it all changed. This is where it all started. It all started with this win at the MCG against the Blues. So well done to North. We're all very happy. And the less teams there are that are easy beats, the better it is for the competition. There's no doubt about it. So well done to North Melbourne on a ripper win. Carlton, look, I'll let the powers that be at Carlton judge what the best course of action is moving forward. Is it Voss getting sacked? I hope it's not. For everybody in the league, definitely hope Carlton do not sack Michael Voss. If you're a Carlton fan, I think most of you do want Voss to get sacked. We then, so looking at Nathan here, Blues did make a play back. They did, but let's be real. They only made that comeback because North put the cue in the rack. North were not playing to win at that point. They were just trying to kill the game. So Nathan, I get what you're talking about, but that wasn't a real comeback. That was just a last quarter of desperation where the Blues were trying to save face. That was not a play to win. That was a play to save themselves the embarrassment of having been smashed by 40 points. That it was not a close game. So massive shout out to North Melbourne. We then get to this one at Adelaide Oval between Port Adelaide and the Swans. You would have seen on the pod that I did indeed tip the Swans in this one. I thought that they had some really important ins that make the world of difference for North Melbourne. For the Swans, should I say. For South Melbourne. You look at who they had. Roberts, a very decent, good kick off halfback. Goulden, one of their premier players. Papley, the Energizer Bunny, who gives them so much grunt and a great, not only is he potent in the forward line, but he gives them also some extra connection with the midfield. And Joel Amadi, who honestly could not kick the ball to save his life. That was a horrific performance by Amadi. Oh, there are too many mushrooms in that party, that's for sure. So definitely thought that the ins were certainly in the Sydney Swans' favour. You look at who they lost. They lost Wines. I think, Wines a Brownlow medalist. I know you might say that the Brownlow medal isn't quite as, it's not as weighty as it once was. But Ollie Wines is a very decent inside midfielder who provides them with a lot of grunt. And they've also lost Alir for this game as well. So he's a really important structural piece in their backline. And so it really came down to having the combination of Radagalia and Brandon Zerk-Thatcher, which really is not the best of the best. And I'm pretty sure based on performance and attitude, Jeremy Finlayson isn't really high up in Ken Hinckley's books either. So based on the ins and the outs, I definitely thought that the Swans were going to have the better of it on the day. And that they did. They definitely had the better performance. And as you say, Nathan Alir is their best defender. So, of course, that they were going to struggle in a week where the Swans were stocked up with some of their really important players. And they definitely missed a lot of early opportunities to ice the game, to kill the game by quarter time. As we say, bad kicking is bad football, but the Swans did enough. They did enough to be able to link up inside forward 50 enough times. And gee whiz, Grundy is having one heck of a season this year, especially in the last maybe 2 months. Grundy is flying under the radar when it comes to impact for a ruckman. Grundy has been doing sensationally. and he's been really doing some great follow-up work on ground level. He's not getting beat in the ruck, especially, this week there was a double team of Sweet and Dante Visentini. Dante was subbed out, I think it was. No, it wasn't. It was Sweet who was subbed out. And then you can definitely see that Grundy was taking full advantage of what happened from then on out. Clearances were slightly in the Swans' favour, and the contested possession, it was at the source. They've enjoyed having Mills back. So Mills came back before the bye. They've now added Goulden. They've now added Papley. A lot of these big name, important core players are performing for the Swans now at the right time. It's very easy to sink the boots into the Swans for the way that they've started the season. But you can't take away the fact that the players that they were missing earlier on in the year were vital. And they led from the opening bounce all the way to the end. It was a comprehensive victory by the Swans. There were a few times where Port Adelaide looked to maybe generate some momentum, but they let the Swans off the hook a couple of times. The home ground advantage could not get Port over the line. Well done to the Sydney Swans on what was a valiant performance. And you can see that things are starting to turn. Things are starting to turn for the Swans. How much damage can they do to a lot of teams trying to make the 8 this year? That will be the question. Unlikely that they make the 8 from here on out, but it will be interesting to see how much damage that they cause other people on their trip to making finals. That was that game. We then move to the night game between the Pies and the Saints. A very entertaining match. Really it was. The Saints, they lost by a pretty comfortable margin in the end, but I think it was entertaining to watch for the most part. Just when it looked like the Pies might be getting away with it, St Kilda decided to stick around. They played for the whole 4 quarters, and, it sucks having someone like Membry out of the team, playing for the other side, kicking goals against you. It sucks. I can imagine it would be really difficult right now, and I'm sure St Kilda, knowing from Anna, co-host of the FanCast, where she is very, very much disappointed in Battle leaving. So you got a few players there from the Saints in Battle and Membry, both sides of the ground, which has weakened them a little bit. Obviously, King not out there. Obviously, Mateus Filippo not out there as well. So the Saints, they sort of were a bit against it, against this rampaging unit that is the Collingwood Magpies. They've got so many options moving forward. It is ridiculous. If it's not Membry, it's McStay. If it's not McStay, it's Elliott. If it's not Elliott, then obviously it's Myercheck. If it's not Myercheck, then it's someone running in, someone like a Darcy Cameron floating forward from the ruck. If it's not Jamie Elliott, then it's Pendles. If it's not Pendles, then it's Sidebottom, or it's Bobby Hill, or it's Dacos. Both of them. Or it's Crisp running off the back line. So many offensive weapons for the Pies. It really makes them a handful, and you get tired both mentally and physically when you're playing against Collingwood, because they just have so many players that you have to be aware of at all times. Where are they? Are they goal side of me? Are they running into other? Because all of these guys have a license that once they're inside the forward line, they can take a ping and they can go for goal. A lot of them are good decision makers, and a lot of them can really hit the ground and run. So the Pies, not only do they keep you have to be mentally switched on at all times where your direct opponent is, it also is very physically taxing, because the Pies love to surge, play fast, and they go all in, chips in, putting immense pressure on the ball carrier. They strip you of the ball. They put your back line on the back foot. You get tired. You put someone to run with Nick Dacos. They are puffed because he is one of the hardest runners in the competition as well. So the Pies really don't lack for anything. It's not like someone, for example, Fremantle, who you think would have a lot of great talent all over the ground. But because they've never achieved anything, you can see that at times the belief isn't there. It's now that they're starting to get some wins together that the belief in the system, the belief in their teammates is really getting better. So you look at the Pies, they've got belief leaking out of them. They are a team of belief. And as soon as Craig McRae came into this side and became their coach, they have been flying. It's not just fly by nickname, it is flying by performance. They play for each other, they play fast, they take the game on, and it's really hard to beat them when they're up and about. And then you've got the Collingwood. When you hear that chant going, yes, it is very frustrating to hear, very annoying to hear. But well done to the crowd for helping getting their boys over the line. The 19th man definitely comes in handy for them, as well as the umpiring every now and then looking after Collingwood. So I'm just going to chuck that in there. Dabby, we just need another Pies loss. Look, they're bound to lose one or two between now and end of the season, right? They're bound to lose one. It's very unlikely that they're just going to continue to win every single game from here on out. Very unlikely that they become undefeated and no one can touch them. They're bound to lose one, surely. The question becomes when, and the question is how. And a lot of it's going to stem from the Pies themselves. Are they going to feel overconfident at some point? Are they going to feel like we've got this? Are they going to get complacent in any way, shape, or form? That's going to be the question. It's also going to be a question of, can teams break this code? Can they understand how the Pies tick? I feel like they're going to be the number one team on everyone's radar in trying to assess how they play. Because I feel like now with Geelong, Brisbane have laid out the groundwork. And I feel like a lot of teams, when they play against Geelong, are going to try and implement that game style that Brisbane brought against them. Of course, can every team do that? No, because Brisbane are the reigning premiers and their team is stacked. But they'll try maybe and play that way. So far, no one has cracked Collingwood at this point. It will be interesting to see which team will be the one that identifies how Collingwood plays. Because there's no doubt that Collingwood play their best when it's fast and when it's open. So maybe something has to be done there. Not entirely sure what has to happen about that. But well done to Geelong cracked them. Well, Geelong are a really impressive team, Nathan. You're right. Geelong maybe did crack them. But it was really close. It was really close. And what Geelong does better than most teams is that they really are super efficient. They are super efficient and they normally stand up in key crucial moments with superstars like Dangerfield, with superstars like Tom Stewart, Bailey Smith, Max Holmes. They've got, obviously Jezza Cameron. There's a lot of them. And don't forget, they had a shot after the siren. Crispy, in his record-breaking game, had the shot after the siren. So Geelong, even though they cracked them, they still very easily could have lost to them if that goal was kicked by, obviously, after the siren. So big kudos to the Pies. It will be interesting to see what unfolds for them moving forward. Giyu, I don't watch football. Is this the final score? Are they still playing? No, it is final score. There is no football at the moment, Giyu, but thanks for joining. We then move to the battle of the expansion clubs, the Giants and the Suns. I tipped the Suns, actually. I thought they'd get up. And they definitely let me down, that's for sure, in the way they played. Dabby, too bad Jezza and Dangerfield and Stewart might end up going if we get the premiership. Well, they are getting older. They are getting on in years. Obviously, Dangerfield, racked up game 350 on the weekend. So he's definitely closer to the end than he was before. But ultimately, you don't play just to watch those players. Ultimately, they're playing for the premiership. And so if they win the premiership, I think they'll be more than happy to when they retire. They'll be more than happy. And it's not like the Cats don't have anyone to come up behind them. They've got some, Connor O'Sullivan is a freak. Connor O'Sullivan is a wonderful defender for the Cats. They have unearthed him. Obviously, Humphrey Lawson, wonderful player as well, coming out of the back line for the Cats. So it's not like they have nothing else once those guys go. There is a younger crop coming through for the Cats, and they are very good. Back to this game. Giants and the Suns. You're right, Nathan. Gold Coast absolutely bottled this game. I was feeling very good about myself early on in the piece, but gee whiz. Bad kicking is bad football. And some of the decision making, oh my God, can you believe that Ainsworth called play on to his teammate to cause a 50-meter penalty and a goal? Can you believe that? I have never seen self-sabotage to that degree ever. Causing your teammate to give away a 50-meter penalty for something that stupid was off the charts. Unbelievable. The Suns, I know they bottled it, and I know you can feel disappointed about that, and you can sink the boots into that. But at the same time, geez, the Suns have come a long way under Dimmer Hardwick in a very short period of time. They are looking much better. They are playing a very competitive brand of football, and they are hard to play against. And that is not something that you can say about the Suns for a long period of time, that they are hard to play against. Very tough, lots of inside 50s. They definitely won that midfield battle. They dominated in the hitouts. Obviously, they got someone like Witts tapping the ball down to him. Got the clearances, especially in the centre bounces. They are a wonderful combination in that midfield. Noah Anderson, Tuke Miller, Matt Rowell. This trio is insane. And congratulations to the Suns for holding on to Matt Rowell. Matt Rowell extended his contract, staying with the Suns. That is a big win for Gold Coast. They've always had that trouble of holding on to their talent. They have. Congratulations to them on that front. And you look at the contested possessions. That is unreal. Unreal contested possession count. Plus 21 for the Suns. That is how they want to play. And they have players on the outside that can torch you. So really keen to see what comes from the Suns season. I do think they are good enough to make it to the 8. I do think they're good enough to make it to the finals. And if they get a home final, they will be winning it. I made that call a few weeks ago, and I still reckon that the Suns, yes, they might have dropped this one game, but I do think that the future is indeed very bright for them. Last game of the round, it is the Dogs and the Tigers. 21 goals 9 to 8 goals 8. This was a brutal performance. The Dogs, they love to play at Marvel Stadium. The Tigers, less so. And we saw it on the weekend. The Dogs were in full flight. Marcus Bontempelli, what a superstar. The GOAT of the Bulldogs at the very least. And the best player in the competition. He was sensational. 36 disposals and 4 goals. What a freak. Kicking it to Darcy. Darcy comes in and all of a sudden, all of those issues for the Dogs in that forward line have been completely resolved. The Bulldogs, they are a bit of a flat track bully. They are flat track bullies. They love to play against bottom 8 sides and struggle a bit more with the top 8 ones. But very keen to see what comes now that they've got this wonderful complement in the midfield. Ed Richards continues to torch opposition. Ed Richards has been wonderful in that midfield. Treloar is out for a few weeks, but to be honest, they don't need him at all. They've got plenty of midfield depth at the Bulldogs. And now that they've added Darcy to that forward line, who can stop him? Who can stop him? There is no fair matchup up against Sam Darcy. This kid is going to be the best forward in the comp for a long period of time. And it's going to be so much fun to watch. Eventually, you're just going to get sick of it because this guy is kicking bags of goals on everybody's heads. And if you hate the Doggies, brace yourself because you're going to have it really tough moving forward. The Tigers, nothing to be worried about here for the Tigers. Yes, it is a rebuilding year. Just keep pumping games into the kids. Jasper Alga made his debut on the weekend. It's what you want to see. A lot of the kids, and they picked the perfect time to rebuild the Tigers. In a draft that was super stacked last year, they completely traded out everybody and got all the draft picks in the right period of time. The Tigers will improve very quickly moving forward. I don't think they're going to be cellar dwellers for a while. They're definitely on the up, and the youth are certainly worth persisting with. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, was the week that was in the round of 15 here with the AFL Premiership season. We'll have a quick look at the ladder after these performances, and it is becoming a bit of a logjam. For the team, Adelaide are on 36. 9 wins equal with 7th, and they are only a game. So if the Gold Coast Suns are 9th, they are a game behind 4th. That's how close it is. The Suns are a game behind 4th, and then it's really 9 and above. Carlton in at 10, they are 2 games behind, and the way they are performing, you don't really think they're going to be challenging. The Swans, now that they've got their full complement back, potentially could be causing some issues for people if you're not careful at number 8. Be careful, the Swans could come. Port, you can't really see them challenging from here. The Bombers, certainly not. Melbourne, they've dropped too many games, and I think they're too far behind the 8 ball now. 3 games behind 8th. So really, out of the teams that are still competing, you would imagine that the only ones that could make it into the 8 are the Swans and the Suns. I think they are the only 2 real relevant teams outside of the top 8 that could pinch that spot in 8th right now. So really, really exciting to see what comes from here. Port Adelaide absolutely had to win that game at home against the Swans. Genuinely had to do it, but they didn't. And so the question becomes, as you mentioned here, Bronx World, who misses out on the 8? Who is going to bungle it from here? That's what's going to be the interesting question. Who is going to choke? I agree with you, Record, that the Sydney comeback could be on, but the question is, who misses out? The Dogs continue to do really well. The Giants, they had to win that game. If the Giants did not beat the Suns, you probably would have thought that they might be the ones to drop out of all of them. Because Freo, I think, have quite a few games at home. I think the Hawks have refound their mojo again. Adelaide have proven to be an absolute dynamic team with a great forward line. The Cats are the Cats. And they've probably won too many games now to miss from here on out anyway. So the question will be, really, I think, out of those 2 bottom sides, the Giants and the Dogs, I think those are the 2, not only by virtue of their ladder position. The Giants have the same number of wins as Fremantle, as you can see here. But the Giants they have a few injuries, and they have been hit or miss so far. They haven't been consistently good, and they were lucky to beat the Suns. Lucky. And as you say, Mario, the Suns still have a game in hand. They're going to play against my boys, the Bombers, in Gold Coast at the end of the year, where they are going to destroy us. So the Suns, absolutely, with a game in hand, could very well leap over the Dogs or the Giants, depending on who it is. I think the Dogs because they can't play good sides, says Bronx World. Well, you might have a point. Their record against top 8 sides is quite poor. But they've got the Bont and they've got Darcy. With these two, a lot of possibilities open. And when those two, I think, were playing earlier in the season, they only just fell short against Collingwood when they were completely shafted by the umpiring. So it's very possible that the Dogs, with this full complement now, will mean that they could hold on to that coveted spot in the 8. It's a matter of percentage. So to be honest, it's going to be the Giants to miss out. And you are most likely correct on that front. So their percentage is only 107, by far, clearly the lowest out of everybody in the 8. The bye has come at a good time now that Lachie Whitfield has had to do the HIA assessment and was ruled out. Lachie Whitfield will miss, obviously, the bye week, which means that he will be available to play in round 17. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Giants play out the rest of the year. You'd think with that sort of coach and the talent that they've got that they can hold on to that spot. But the Suns have really come to play this year. The Suns have really come to play. They have lost 3 on the trot, which is quite surprising. They should be beating Melbourne. Lost to Geelong at the Cattery. That's not disgraceful. But losing to Fremantle at home that week 3 weeks ago really might have cost the Suns. They hosted Fremantle 3 weeks ago and they dropped it. That could be a game that they will rue for missing. Absolutely could be kicking themselves if they miss out on the 8 by 1 win. It's because of that loss to Fremantle. That would be where the Suns will be left disappointed. Giants beating powerhouse teams and still looking shaky somehow. I know, right? It's really weird. Really, really weird with what's happening with the Giants. They are genuine hit or miss. Genuine hit or miss. The Suns, I feel like I've started to build a bit more confidence in them. Yes, they haven't been able to close out a few of these games in the last 3 weeks, but they do look like they are building really well and building towards a positive, and they have beaten really good sides. Of course, it happened to be when they were in Darwin, when they just don't lose in Darwin. So again, it will be really interesting to see, are the Suns the real deal? Will they win these games that they ought to win to be able to make it into the finals? Will the Swans continue now to build on this form? They've now won 2 in a row. They've got some players back. Massive game against the Dogs. Massive game against the Dogs this week. I'm still not sure who I'm going to tip for that game between the Swans and the Dogs. Will be unreal. Could be an elimination final. If the Swans lose to the Dogs this week, could be season over, potentially. But if they win, oh boy, all of a sudden, everything is possible. And the Dogs will be yet again sweating because they would have failed once again against another good team. I just don't think that the Swans have any decent matchup that could potentially match up against Darcy. Because Darcy is just so good, so big. It's going to be really hard. But I'll be watching that game with bated breath. Absolutely. I think it will be Swans versus Suns for 8th, says record. If the Swans beat the Dogs, we only play easy opponents from then on out. The Swans do have a great run home. That's why it's really important that you win this game against the Dogs. Be really important if they do that. Suns rebuild was amazing. I'm thinking the Suns come 1 or 2 years will be up the top. I know, I was saying it last year, Bronx World, on the pod. It's really... The days of shit Gold Coast are over. The days of shit Gold Coast are over. We're going to start seeing a really annoying period of time where they're just going to be really hard to play against and they're going to continue to perform really well. Tip the Swans? Oh, I'd love to tip the Swans, but I think I'm going to tip the Dogs just because of what Darcy brings to the side. Hey, Maguire number 6. Is Dave there? Thomas Brinkman says, I will definitely pass it on. Good to see. Good to see you, mate. Dabby, didn't realise how low Essendon is. I thought they may have had a slight chance this year. What? Slight chance of a heart attack? What are you talking about? The Bombers were definitely not a chance this year to begin with. I predicted, as an Essendon man myself, and you can see the can you see the Essendon logo over there? Yeah, Essendon logo there. I predicted that the Bombers would finish anywhere between 12th and 14th. Was my pre-season tip, between 12th and 14th. Then all the injuries came in, and that, any semblance of a possibility of making the 8 was well and truly gone. When you got Mackay out, Ridley out, Reed out, Hayes out, Redman, we're playing our number 1 key defender is Jaden Laverde, who was 5th in line for the role, 5th in line, and he's 190 centimeters. That's our number 1 key defender at 192 centimeters. No way in the world, with those injuries, could anyone mount a serious sort of comeback. Why is it kind of funny looking at North's form? They've won 3 of their last 5. They have. And don't forget, the game before this was a draw to Brisbane. So that's the reason why. North are seriously building. North are every chance of actually jumping over Essendon this year with the way that they're going. Their rebuild, they seem to be getting out of that rebuild now. Clarko has got them playing the way that he wants them to play. They're playing that sort of unsociable Hawks style, but now unsociable North. They're playing with a ferocity. They've got someone like Simpkin, who's playing a selfless role in the team, putting a lot of pressure, harassing. Everyone's doing their bit at North Melbourne at the moment, and that's what they really want. So it's going to be keen. I'm going to be interested to see how high North Melbourne go this year. Big game against the Hawks. Big game against the Hawks this week. Will be really interesting to see how they go. They're up and about right now. Obviously, they're feeling really good. They're feeling really happy having beaten the Blues, and they deserve to, and they should. The question will be, can they then back it up next week against Clarko's old mob? Will be really interesting to see how they go in that game. We'll be doing the tips very shortly. The Swans fell off this year. They did fall off this year, but you can't forget they have had a lot of injuries to really important players, and obviously they also had a change in the coach. So Horse is gone, Cox is in. Yes, they might have been there together for a long period of time, but obviously Cox has his own coaching philosophy. If he didn't, they would have just kept Horse in there. So there is a bit of a transition period where they have to learn the new guys' methods and understand the new game plan. So there's going to be teething problems. So I can completely understand why the Swans fell off at the start of the year. The injuries and the new game style. So I'm willing to forgive the Swans for that initial start to the season. North are really going to go places soon. They will. Fingers crossed for him. Give North and Richmond a couple. I agree. A couple of years, they'll be top 8. Well, obviously the thing with North Melbourne is they've started their rebuild a significant period of time before Richmond did. Obviously, Richmond are only year one into the rebuild, and so they're very young. They're very, very young. So I'm willing to give them a bit more than that. North Melbourne, on the other hand, North Melbourne should be aiming for the 8 in 2 years' time. And not just aiming for the 8 in 2 years' time, they should be winning a final in 2 or 3 years' time. I think North Melbourne, with the way they're going, I think they need another key forward, another young key forward that they can play to support, someone like Larkey. I think it's really important that Larkey has some assistance. Really fortunate that North Melbourne did not draft someone like a Nate Caddy and that he was able to get to our pick. Let's be honest, top 3 right now will stay at the end of the year. Agreed. This top 3 are locked, probably, you would imagine. What was that? join my fan club. What was that? I did not do that. I absolutely did not do that. So, but yeah, the top three, they seem to be definitely up and about. They seem to be the top three for sure. It'll be a question of how Adelaide go. I mean, Adelaide now have got, wait, that's pretty interesting. Up next for Geelong is Richmond. Up next for Adelaide is Richmond. This is one of those rare times because Geelong have the bye this week. They don't actually play anyone. Because Geelong don't... So Geelong's next opponent is round 17, which is Richmond. Whereas Adelaide play Richmond in round 16. So the funny thing is they both appear to be playing Richmond next week. That's pretty good. That's a pretty funny quirk there, if I may say so myself. Jen, good to see you, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on. Heart out to you, Jen. You're a superstar. Thank you very much for coming on and joining us here. We're just going over the round that was as a live stream, sort of a little bit different. The club's not available for us. Hey, Joe, how are you? Doing very well. Doing very well. Thank you so much for watching, Jen. Same as Giants and Collingwood both have West Coast. Yeah. Collingwood have West Coast and the Giants have West Coast. You are correct. Good call there, Bronx World.